What's up, good people? I just wanted to drop a video because some awesome fucking news just dropped today. Something that I'm super personally excited about because, I have a philosophical preference for open source technology in general, but especially open source AI models. And today, Meta has dropped Llama 3. Yes, the sequel to one of the best open source models that there's been out there. Llama 2 was incredible when it dropped. At some point it was overtaken by Mixtral in terms of open source performance and being like, the go-to open source king. But it looks like Meta is back in the game, not only being super competitive and it looks like reclaiming the open source crown, but also striking blow for blow with GPT-4 on a lot of bases. So I just wanted to cover that really quick. It looks super exciting. If you actually check out the benchmarks, first and foremost, they've dropped two models today. They've dropped the 8 billion parameter model and the 70 billion parameter model. So the 8 billion is going to be more applicable to local use cases. If you have a powerful enough computer, that's something that you could run locally without needing access to the internet or without running any sort of cloud GPUs or cloud computing. So that's really exciting. And so they show us the benchmarks and it crushes Google's Llama, which nobody was really very impressed with to start. That was like almost a throwaway model from Google because they launched like months and months after Mistral, and it just wasn't competitive with Mistral, which was already, kind of considered the open source king at this point. And this is against Mistral 7B, which isn't even as good as Mixtral. So yeah, definitely Llama was kind of a flop. I think they just, tossed it out there just to say they had something on the open source market. But anyway, Meta's Llama 3 8B, you can see crushes both of those models. It's not even close, especially, you're talking about MMLU is, kind of multitask reasoning. And so it demolishes those. It gets Mistral by 10 points there. That's awesome. If you consider human eval, that's the coding capability. It's not even close. We're talking almost double. It actually doubles Llama encoding capability. So just utter annihilation on that front. The GSM 8K, which is a math benchmark, also more than doubling. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So Meta coming out strong on this one. This is impressive. So you could see use cases for something like Llama 3 8B on high-end computers where you're actually able to run these things locally. And hopefully in the near future with AI specific chips that are coming out from Intel and AMD, we can start to run these on lower and lower tier devices, hopefully. But 70B is where it's at, in particular for people that are really trying to build super advanced applications, people that are trying to build businesses and are happy to run LLMs in the cloud or in cloud GPUs. And you can see Llama 3 beating Gemini Pro, which is Google's like second place offering. It's not Gemini Ultra, but it's their second place most cutting edge frontier model. So you can see it beating that in reasoning, obviously only by 0.1, so it's not a huge difference. And beating Claude 3 Sonnet, which is also their second tier model by 3 points on multitask reasoning. So again, we're not talking about blowing them out of the water in massive proportions, but still for an open source model to be competitive with the second tier offerings from both Google and Anthropic, and also, blowing GPT 3.5 out of the water. Obviously with these benchmarks, it's just super impressive and exciting. And so word is, it's not dropping today. Apparently it's still in training, but Meta's also training a 400 billion parameter model, and it's gonna blow these out of the water. So yeah, it's a fair comparison with Meta comparing their 70B offering to these second tier offerings from some of the top AI companies, because obviously they have one in the canon that's gonna be their top tier offering. And I can only fathom how much that's going to how much that's going to shake up the AI space. Having an open source model that's that capable. And they've been doing a really great job of, offering licenses that are really flexible and allow you to go in there and do whatever you want to do. And until you hit, they received some flack because they had certain caps where you would have to get a commercial licensing agreement with them after a certain amount of users. But it was, I don't even remember what the number was, but it was millions upon millions and millions of users. It was a high enough offering that if you reach that level using Llama, I feel like that's a just requirement for them to then want to have a conversation with you about like, hey, you put something out there that has clearly reached a mass appeal. And so let's talk about how we can, make a more profitable partnership. I feel like that's justified. Anyway, super exciting stuff. I don't want to go too deep into this right now. I just wanted to break this news because it's super exciting. And for me, somebody that really believes that open source is not only the best way to ensure that the most humans as possible benefit from AI technology, but also the safest way to release this technology. I know that sentiment isn't shared by everybody. A lot of people feel like open source is more dangerous because, of course, anybody can take it and modify and are free to do what they want with it. But those people aren't really acknowledging the danger in having closed source frontier models that have no transparency or visibility by the public. You're putting a lot of faith in the hands of corporations that don't necessarily have the best track record for altruism. So really soon here, you're going to see Autonomite's AI sidekicks running on Llama 3, which I'm pumped about. So good news. And the one big disappointment I would say about Llama 70B is the context window. It's only 8K, which hopefully that can be adjusted. I'm not too sure what the capability is of expanding that via open source tinkering, but hopefully that happens. Otherwise, that's pretty disappointing. And hopefully their 400B model really competes because second tier models from the big AI companies are all pushing, at least 120, I think in the case of 3 Sonnet. Gemini Pro pushing 1 million tokens. So it's quite the large disparity there. And the token window is actually one of the biggest limitations for most AI models up into this point, because it limits the amount of information that you can be sharing back and forth. So for certain tasks, it really hampers what you can do, particularly with coding capabilities, which is a real bummer because Llama 3 scores so well on the human eval coding test. And so its coding capabilities are fantastic, but when you only have an 8,000 token context window, you can't really drop your whole code base in and have it, code things up for you based on that, like you can with Gemini Pro. So that's a huge bummer. And hopefully their top tier model will really compete on that front, because clearly its coding capabilities are breathtaking. You can see even the 70B Llama is extremely competitive with the top tier models in terms of arithmetic. Super impressive. It beats GPT-4 in that regard. And again, in coding, it just stomps everything outside of Claude 3 Opus, which is super impressive. I don't know how long it's going to take Meta to get out this 400B model. Of course, we know it's still training and they're going to want to red team it when it's done training. But if they drop it soon enough, they could have the coding champ on their hands. And it being open source, I could just imagine a variety of coding platforms utilizing Llama 3 to help give you enhanced AI capabilities on their platforms. All right, so with Llama 3 dropping today, I got to tip my hat to Zuck. And I just want to talk about this because, look, I got over a decade of experience as a Zuck hater. Trust me, I have not been a fan of Mark Zuckerberg and Meta or Facebook. I have not been a fan. Obviously, they don't have the greatest track record in terms of altruism, respecting people's privacy, and really putting the well-being of human beings first and foremost. They don't have the best track record in that regard. And look, I'm a big fan of what they are doing now. Zuck being one of the big champions of open source and this open source versus closed source battle that's happening in the AI space. And so I got to show him a lot of respect for it. You know, Zuck is on, I won't call it a hero arc. Zuck is on a human arc right now. You know, he got so tired of us calling him a cyborg or a reptilian that he's going all out right now to be as human as possible. He's on his human arc. You know, he's been out here, you know, learning MMA and trying to be cool and all sort of stuff. And look, you can see in this video announcement of him, he's all super tanned and everything, actually looking like he spent a little time in the sun. We're used to Zuck showing up with his ghostly white appearance and, you know, beady eyes. And look, he's rocking the chain. He's rocking one of those chains you get off the bathtub stopper. Like I said, I'm a big fan of what Zuck is doing right now. But that doesn't mean that I think that what he's doing is necessarily altruistic. So a lot of people are asking, why would Zuckerberg and Meta support open source? And I don't think the answer is actually that complicated when you really sit down and think about it. Consider the product that Meta is most known for, Facebook, is a free-to-use product, right? They built their whole empire around this free-to-use product. And they didn't even have a good monetization strategy at first, until they really ramped up their ad service and started generating some revenue in that regard. But Zuck had the approach of putting the thing out there, getting people to use it, and then figuring out how to monetize it later, which they did. Consider also that Facebook has not really built any other successful product. They've been most successful by making acquisitions when someone else builds something that starts to become successful, whether it be Instagram, WhatsApp, you name it. So this open source strategy makes perfect sense if you're Zuck and Meta, right? First of all, they want to create an ecosystem around their language model. They want to put it out there freely so that you get more developers building things with it and making their ecosystem, their tooling, all far more advanced, right? If they are able to become the de facto open source standard, then obviously it grants them a lot of power in the control of that ecosystem, as well as the fact that, look, people that are all about open source build open source. So there's a lot of things that people will build that Meta can then take and utilize in whatever they're building. So it's a win-win scenario in terms of Meta and the community of developers that are building with their products. Not to mention, going back to the whole issue of acquisitions, they're giving people the LLM tools with which to build software that could potentially, you know, blow up and become successful companies that Meta can then go back and acquire, right? They're giving you the tools and saying, hey, build something. So then we can look around and see who's building the best software and apps and platforms with our tech. And then we can just acquire them. So there's valid game theoretical reasons for Meta doing this. They also realize that, you know, it's a tough fight to go against the closed source companies right now. Do they really want to trade blows with Microsoft and OpenAI or Anthropic? I don't know that they actually want to trade blows in that regard. Clearly, I mean, they have the resources to do it. But it's like, if you see everybody that is the most competitive fighting for one lane, and then you see this other lane over here that's pretty much unoccupied, and it's a lane that actually is really underserved because recent polls have shown that more corporations and businesses are interested in open source than closed source. And that makes perfect sense. People are tired of building businesses and building their infrastructure around closed source platforms that can then use that vendor lock-in to treat you however they want to treat you, to raise prices on you or to strong arm you into taking more and more of your revenue. Not to mention, what if they make some decision that you don't agree with? Then it just forces you to have to be on the constant hamster wheel of adjusting to all of their changes and updates. Whereas if you have an open source model, you can decide not to update and you could just continue using the model as is with all of your own custom code and custom tooling. So it makes sense. So you have the lane that is more interesting and compelling to most of the businesses and corporations out there that nobody's really fighting for because of ideological reasons. So Facebook is like, okay, we could compete with all of you guys over here, or we could take, admittedly, the less profitable lane if you just look at the surface level, but the lane that could give them significantly more influence over the AI industry as a whole. So I think it's a smart play. I can't believe I find myself in a situation where I'm rooting for Zuckerberg and Meta. And again, just because they're supporting open source right now and everything I hear Zuck saying about open source, I actually agree with. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Zuck is out here being altruistic and now he's like really for the people. I'm not gonna take anything away from the possibility that he might be really on his human arc and, trying to make a turnaround and trying to be more altruistic. I think a lot of these guys, they hit a point where they have all the money in the world. They have all the influence that they could possibly dream of. And I think deep down, some of them really still do just want to be liked by people. So maybe Zuck just really is over here trying to be the good guy, but they don't need to be trying to be the good guys for this open source commitment to really make sense for their business. So anyway, round of applause for Zuck and Meta. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm super pumped about Llama 3, and I can't wait to really get playing with it. And so we're going to definitely be exploring more of actual hands-on use cases with Llama over the next few weeks. And again, you're going to see a ton of my sidekicks really soon, powered by Llama 3.